Hello, everyone. This is Alan Bonde from TreviPay, and today I'm thrilled to have Paul Rodgers from Vendorcom. How are you, Paul?
I'm absolutely great. It's a delight to speak to you today.
So lots is happening in our space, but as we always do, um, maybe a little bit on your background and on Vendorcom to set the stage for our conversation.
Yeah, I'm delighted to introduce you to what we've been doing for actually 20 years this year. We're delighted to have celebrated 20 years of bringing the merchant payments community together. So I set Vendorcom up back in 2003 with the idea of bringing together our vendor community, hence the name. But increasingly over that time, more and more merchants have joined because well, we just find that they're really hungry for authoritative, independent information on what's going on in this, frankly, crazy merchant payments ecosystem that we're all involved in.
And this is tell us about the scope of, I guess, what your community ponders, but also the scope of the membership.
Yeah, so the membership, as I say, initially was solutions vendors, and that covers all stakeholder groups from card schemes to payment processors, acquirers, payment gateways, hardware, software, information security, fraud analytics, pretty much anyone that's offering a solution that impacts on the payments value chain. And so initially we were starting off in the UK, but very quickly grew to across Western Europe, but with pretty much taking the whole of our interactions with members online, then we're as effectively global as you can be. And we do recognize the global nature of this industry, although with a pretty heavily focused national bias sometimes in certain jurisdictions, whether that's regulatory biased or just social norms in terms of payments. So we've got a really exciting, very vibrant set of interactions with our members. We have briefings that bring people up to speed on what's going on. We have forums that tend to deal with the more pressing issues of today, and we have working groups that try to resolve some of the things that we see happening on the horizon that we would like to shape in a particular direction. So there's something on pretty much every week within the Vendorcom world.
That's awesome. So let's talk about what you're hearing in these briefings and forums and discussions, because certainly this is a market in transition. As we've
Yeah,
used to talk about in the digital transformation world, it's happening right now. It's not evenly distributed, right? This transformation, and I suspect that's
you're right.
really the case, in Western Europe. Maybe a few of the hot topics or things that you're seeing that are consistent across these different forums. That would be interesting to hear because as we work across industries and geographies, we know that there's different focus points, but maybe there's a few things that we can highlight that are hot buttons independent of who you're talking to.
Yeah, I think there are a few common features, and the way that we define things is very much focused on what we call merchant payments. And we make a really strong distinction. Of course, there's that big, broad payments world, but the inbound payments are really quite distinctly different from the outbound payments. There's a little bit of overlap, but in terms of the systems, the types of buyers, the levels of fraud protection, systems that are being used, and so on, it's really we see two distinct ecosystems. So we're focused on that merchant payments ecosystem, and within that, there very clearly are some common areas. Payment security is just so important. A lot of people talk about payment choice, and I think that is important, although it can often be overemphasized to the point of creating confusion. Now, that pertains perhaps a bit more to the consumer side of things, when consumers can get confused by all the different options that are being presented to them. But we've seen a lot of change. I started Vendorcom in the rollout of chip and pin in the UK back in 2003, and that was the first big change for many, many years. But actually, almost every year over the last 20 years, we've seen something fairly significant happen along the way, whether that's been the introduction of PCI and payment security restrictions and standards around card security, or whether that's been different types of interface, so that's whether it's contactless or mobile, QR, whether it's just completely different payment tokens that have moved on from cash and cards into open banking and areas like that. So I think we're dealing with a much more changing environment, and I think the merchants really do appreciate help and guidance to help them understand where they should be prioritizing their activities, because to be really honest, they can't be doing everything, and frankly, they shouldn't be doing everything in this area. They certainly don't have the bandwidth. Often they don't have the knowledge or expertise, and that's one of the areas we come in to help provide that. So yeah, just helping them navigate this pretty crazy landscape and helping them find the reference points, whether that's understanding the payment types, the payment channels, helping them understand the relevance and the things that are important in their particular sector, because again, you can't just talk generically about all payment acceptors. They're uniquely different, and in our case, we're looking at everything from airlines to vending and everything in between. And so yeah, it's such a vibrant arena to be working in.
There's no shortage of challenges. Our world in B2B, I would claim, has a lot of this dimensionality times something, right? Maybe it's even exponential. I know we've
Yeah,
talked a bit about cross-border, cross-currency. A big, I guess, facet of our business is big global sellers, big global
yeah,
merchants selling to big global buyers. And
yeah.
then, of course, by definition, they're dealing with cross-border, cross-currency. I'm curious sort of what you're seeing in your travels, what's coming to the fore in terms of those conversations, and where's the greatest need, especially for those more global merchants, in terms of navigating that, in some cases to make sure they're on the right side of the law, in other cases to just expand their business. And we know, especially in areas like retail or travel, it's always about expansion, right? Expand or die, as they say.
Very definitely. We see it really affecting the merchants in terms of definitely on that B2B side, also on the consumers buying from merchants. But that B2B side, particularly when you're looking at those larger merchants, as you say, they have to maintain a global presence, recognizing that their global buyers are often that they often have specific preferred payment methods. And of course, cards have been that ubiquitous thing. But we've seen over the last 20 years a real swing in the consumer side from credit-based payments to debit-based payments, but that's not really going to happen quite so much in the B2B world. They're not going to be paying directly from their bank accounts that there and then on the way a debit card would
Well,
be
either they
debiting
require
funds.
or they've always had an account, right? I mean, this classic, you have a business account and you pay on terms, and if you're a better customer, you get better terms. This
Yeah,
this is spreading, right? I mean, this is core to B2B, but also the expectation, and even in the research that we've done recently with our friends at Murphy Research,
yeah.
ties the ability to pay on terms, but also the choice of terms and discounting and all those little variations to loyalty. But of course, that's the same way that if you're a business, you go to your local hardware store. Well, if they know you and they give you a better terms, well, you're going to do more business with them. It's the same idea, right?
It really is, and but it needs to be better than just the sort of credit terms that might be offered on a standard credit card,
Of course.
and even than what might be offered on a corporate credit card. And that's one of the things that's really mystified me a bit is why the credit card companies aren't doing more to recognize that a corporate card, corporate credit card isn't just there for that immediate purchase. It really does need to be offering more that recognizes the types of credit agreements, the account based style agreements that businesses
Oh, and the
want to
back
have.
end too, right? The invoicing, the reconciliation, all this, which is, even though we're talking about the inbound side, there's all of the payables part that, of course, is part of doing business. And I think you ignore that at your peril, right? If you're a provider.
Well, the one area where the merchant payments piece that we identify as those inbound payments and the outbound payments at the back end, and that integration to ERP systems is concerned, the B2B a bit really sees that as an important facet and an important part of systems integration, and I think we're seeing that. Solution providers that can really offer that integration, and recognizing that the payment acceptance systems are generally different to the ERP backend reconciliation systems, but they need to work
Yeah, they
together.
better get along, right? This is
Yeah.
and this is maybe a good point to transition from present to futures. So I'm
Mm.
talking here with Paul Rodgers from Vendorcom. Let's bring out your crystal ball. You have lots of helpers in terms of formulating this view of the future. Let's wrap on the idea of what do you see coming in the next year or so, especially when it comes to new choices, but also maybe security and ideally automation, right? Because as you say, integration, the techie in me immediately thinks of automation, right? The more you integrate, the more you have access to data, the more you have opportunities to start automating some of those workflows. Maybe a couple of predictions for the audience in terms of what you think may happen broadly or specifically to B2B over the next, we'll say, 12 to 18 months.
Well, in many ways, like 12 to 18 months, pretty much on the immediate sort of time frame, because many merchants have got buying cycles that are 5 years, 10 years, and whatever they've put in, they're wanting to sweat those assets for a good bit longer. So there's a lot of focus we're seeing right now on getting more out of what you've already got in place.
Mm.
So I'm seeing that's going to be absolutely key. But we're also seeing that the intelligence, the data that is in existing systems needs to be brought to the fore, needs to be used much better. You can't keep it in silos. And so whether it's a customer, business customer paying by different payment methods, they might be just doing system to system payments, calling stuff down. It may be that someone is going into a physical store. It may be that somebody's using a call center to pull it down, to order stock. So it needs to be that different payment methods, different payment channels, all of that information can be aggregated. Now, with that as well comes the requirement to be able to recognize that you really are talking to the same organization, a representative of that company, and don't put them through a really rigorous authentication process. And if you don't need to, if you've got other ways of authenticating them, make that journey as seamless and frictionless as possible.
This
And
is the classic sort of in the CRM space, like tell me that you know me, right? It's like don't
yeah,
have me put in the options on the IVR and then
yeah.
like tell me again like who I am and what I need. It's like I just told you.
Yeah, and if you can detect that your buyer is using the same laptop, same phone, same whatever way of interfacing with you, then that's just going to really help the journey. Now, of course, if you look at the international side of things, being able to meet regulatory requirements, being able to vet customers and get and onboard them quickly. Now, I think most business buyers are happy to put a little bit more time into that initial onboarding, but once it's done, you've got to fast track them for every subsequent payment. The other crystal ball piece is I think we'll be moving away from, not completely away, but certainly seeing a shift in the different weightings given to card payments, to direct debits, and to open banking. I think open banking in the B2B world offers a really interesting alternative, particularly to merchants, instead of direct debit. One of the biggest challenges for direct debits in most jurisdictions is an unlimited timeline on liability. And again, depending on how open banking regulations are actually set over the next couple of years, I think that merchants will actually start picking that up as something that will give them better business benefits and be able to offer better business benefits to their customers.
Thank you so much for your time, Paul. We've been talking with Paul Rodgers of Vendorcom, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks.